Welcome to THD episode 5. This time we're talking about IEMs, and we have very special guests with us in Lachlan from Lachlan Likes the Thing and Minidisc, and
Hello.
Chronicle from, what is your website again?
It's quite complicated, the website. It's chronicle.com.
Oh, well, thanks.
Wait, can you repeat that? I didn't get that the first time.
Yeah, it's really complicated. I didn't know why I had to. It's just.
How do you spell that?
Oh, it's so hard to memorize sometimes.
Say criminal.com? Did you?
Is that with 2 N?
Oh, I think it's with like 5 N's. I don't know, maybe 6 N's.
Like the other ones were already taken, the URLs, right? The domain.
Yeah, because my name is so popular. There's so much reputation.
Yeah.
So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, obviously, as I said, IEMs, and I think a good place to start is to talk about why we guys like IEMs, because all of us do, and all of us use IEMs a lot. So, if you want to start, Chronicle.
Okay. IEMs. I mean, everyone knows that I'm an IEM guy. I actually started because I got my first, not say my first, more like my third custom after a long hiatus of like 2 or 3 years in 2015. And then at that point, I just realized IEMs can get real exciting. Like there's a lot of options when it comes to IEMs, especially when you compare it to, say, headphones, where the headphone industry tends to be really stagnant, and you have like maybe 1 or 2 really exciting releases a year, whereas in the IEM industry you probably get like 1 or 2 exciting releases a week. The progression that you get from the IEM scene is a lot faster than you would from any other side of the audiophile market, and that's what primarily drives my interest in IEMs itself. That and the fact that for quite the longest time I was commuting to and from like work or school, and because of that, I wasn't that interested in headphones, because I'm not gonna bring my headphones outdoors. Most of my headphones are open back, and IEMs isolate. IEMs are very small form factor. It's very discreet. Just pop it in, go outside. You're gonna enjoy high quality audiophile, almost audiophile style sound quality on the go. And it's like a miniaturization of all of the huge technologies and all the great sounds that we get from headphones and speakers. Of course, not quite to that level, of course, but to the point where it's acceptable, and the trade-offs between, let's say, isolation and portability is much more favorable.
Wow, you used some nice buzzwords there. I was like thinking you should be writing like these things for IEM.
I do. I write a lot of things, again, on my very complicated website, chronicle.com.
Yeah, what was that? Kringle.com, was it?
Pringles.com?
Pringles, I think. Oh, I could do some Pringles now.
Oh, once you pop, you can't stop. No, it's a good point. Like it's definitely in recent years, since it's a younger product, like IEMs as a concept aren't as old as headphones are, obviously, since it's a smaller technology, and back then they didn't have that technology, so it's kind of developing a lot more quickly these days than headphones are. I feel like headphones, in a lot of places, like a lot of companies have been trying to differentiate their products from others, and it's been getting harder and harder for them every year, I think.
It's very hard. I mean, I think the most exciting release like recently would be the Stellia, the Focal Stellia. And even then, it's like, it's a closed back utopia, question mark. And then that's kind of like, the interest just fizzles after that.
Yeah, it's like kind of exciting. A20 again, which kind of nobody really cares.
No, I mean, if you're talking about pure excitement, then there would be the RAL Requisite. That really excites me. But it's kind of impractical. Yeah, it's really weird, because at that point, you might as well just get speakers.
I was going to say my excitement for the Stellia sort of fizzled when I saw the color.
1980s car leather brown.
Just wonder what, like,
to me, it looks a bit like a poisonous mushroom. That's the
wow.
That's the thing. But
forbidden.
I'm sure it sounds great, but I'm not a big fan of that brown with all the to the hole grids in it, and it just gives me trypophobia or something.
Oh yeah, the holes. Oh no, that was a horrible design choice. Why did he do that?
I wonder like what kind of market research they did, or if they did any, to like arrive at a color combination.
They don't need market research. It's for Cal. They cater to old people, and that's what old people like. I think.
All right. Then, Lachlan, why do you like IEMs? Why do you think they are interesting for you?
So this is going to make me feel really old, but I got to say that when I got into IEMs and why I got into them, it was at a time when there wasn't that many options. So I was attracted to them because there weren't that many options. When I got into them, it was because an uncle of mine showed me his pair of Shure SE530s, and I thought they sounded, amazing. I had never heard vocals with that kind of intimacy and that kind of resolution before. And it's funny because today I wouldn't necessarily say that the Shure SE535 is necessarily my favorite earphone, but at that time I'd never heard anything like that. And then I went home and I did research, and at the time the space was relatively small. So you had the Shure SE530, you had the Ultimate Ears TF10, and you had the ER4S from Etymotic. And there was an upstart that was just entering the scene at that time, I guess, in the IEM scene in Australia. It was a unknown company called Hi-Fi Man, or maybe it was called Head Direct.
Head Direct, yes.
Yeah, Head Direct. And they were releasing a product called the RE0, and it was like half the price of all these flagship $500. Like, whoa, how crazy is that to say? $500 IEMs that were flagships at the time. And I thought, okay, this is a space where I can have more of a sense of a map of the land, where I can get a product and it will be near like what is achievable in that space. And it was a lot less intimidating at the time. And then today, when we come and where Clinical was saying there's so many product releases, I often wonder how would I get into it today, because there's so much information out there. There's so many different choices. And you often see this in people when they post advice threads. They want to know, where do they start? Do they start? Yeah, I've seen people, because I work at a headphone store, I see people come in and they just hear about this whole audiophile IEM thing, and then they start at like a $1 IEM, like a IE800S from Sennheiser or a Campfire Audio Andromeda, which are sort of common choices I found in that price point. And I kind of think, oh, would I have done the same thing, or would I wanted to just get a bunch of different data points? And it's really crazy to think about how different the market is now compared to what it was all the way back then.
I think there was the point about the, like, what we call the entry, the entry into the audiophile world. And for a lot of us old dogs, I would say, it would be the Shures, the Westons, the Ultimate Ears. But today you have things like I think the most common entry level stuff that a lot of people buy would be, let's say, the One More Triples, a lot of Knowledge Zenith stuff, a lot of Chi-Fi floating around. But most of the time, people usually gravitate towards KZ. And when it comes to those, it's an entry kind of thing. It's like testing the waters, and people from there they start to branch out and be like, do I go back into Chi-Fi, or do I just expand out into the wild and wacky world of mid-fi and the kilobuck stuff, or maybe just jump all the way straight to the top of the line stuff where it costs like $2,000 or $3,000, maybe more than that, just to avoid the pain of trying to wade through all of the massive options that people have right now.
Yeah, I can see how like all the options in the IEM world can definitely be overwhelming for somebody that's new to it. And since IEMs kind of have a different sort of sound and presentation to it, and it's a different feeling of wearing them, it may like be a little bit hard for people that are new to it to like know what they want and what they need. And with IEMs not being that popular in the Western world as compared to Asia, for like so to speak, it's harder for a lot of people online that post online to actually try IEMs for themselves in real life and see like what they like and how they feel and what the comfort is like and what the isolation is like.
Yeah, the same goes for everything in the audiophile market. Actually, not necessarily just for IEMs. You see a lot. This problem is very much present in headphones as well as speakers, because even worse for speakers, because you can't just drop down to someone else's home and you're like, hey, can I try out speakers? Because they might not even have the speakers that you want. And for those people who are even going down to the show floors to try out the speakers, it's like, the room is not optimal. You're going to get so much weird reflections. And yeah, is it the same for IEMs? I don't think so. I think for IEMs, you have tips and daps, and I guess you can call like source matching. But overall, yeah, I mean, I don't know where I'm going with this.
I feel like I'm speaking from just my personal experience. Whereas, like when I'm in a big European city and I can go to an audio store and try all these different high-end headphones, and I can, I can audition speakers. Obviously, as you said, the room may not be ideal, but I can get sort of an idea about them, and I can at least experience them for myself in real life. Where when I want to try any of those big custom IEM brands, it's a lot harder, like, because a lot of them actually come from Asia. They don't really expand that much into European markets or maybe even American markets, as those markets are smaller and those companies are smaller, so it's a big risk for them to expand. So I feel like from my personal experience, it's a lot harder to try very many IEMs than it is to try headphones or speakers, at least in the place that I live at. But yeah, I don't know. I wanted to maybe talk about that in general. I think that at least online in the forums, you get the idea that more Asians use IEMs than Western people. And from my experience, when I lived in Asia, I liked it because and oftentimes in big cities, there can be a lot of noise outside, and IEMs will provide a lot of isolation, which you definitely need to enjoy your music without having to crank it to levels that would destroy your eardrums. So also it's quite hot there, and with the humidity, sometimes wearing ear pads at least wasn't comfortable for me because I tended to sweat, and pads, when you sweat a lot, they disintegrate as well with the sun. They get very hot. So IEMs
there is an interesting like trend I've noticed, like in Australia, for example. Australia has a significant Asian population, but still Caucasian people. We're still outpopulated by Caucasian people by quite a huge amount. The thing is, even despite this differential, I see a lot more Asian people going into stores like Addicted to Audio or Jabin. I'm not sure about Minidisc. Maybe Lachlan can fill me in on this as well. But in terms of these
yes, I can
two stalls, yeah, it's
similar.
like, yeah, a lot of Asians, predominantly Asians, typically visit these audio stores. And when it comes down to IEMs specifically, it's almost always the Asians that buy the IEMs. I've hardly ever seen a Caucasian buy an IEM. It's very rare. I don't know why this is. So, is it an ethnic thing? Is it a geographical thing? It's so weird because because in Singapore everyone's Asian, so it's like, oh, you go into a shop and it's like, yeah, okay, that guy bought IEMs, that guy bought IEMs. But now that I'm in Australia and I see it firsthand, like, oh, the Caucasian people is going to buy the HD 800s. They're going to get the amp. They're probably going to get speakers. They're going to get headphones. The Utopias right there. They're going to buy it. And then the Asian guy comes in and says like, hey, I want a custom, the $2,000 custom. And it's usually only the Asians that ask for the IEMs. It's weird. It's an interesting trend that I've seen. Can Lachlan confirm that it's a majority people, majority of Asians that buy IEMs?
I can confirm that. I would say that Asian customers seem overrepresented in terms of the proportion who come to the store versus the proportion of the population they represent in Australia.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say that they're overrepresented in terms of the breakdown of whether they buy headphones or IEMs. I do think that is a bit more even, but I do get the sense that, at least from my experiences going to Hong Kong and seeing the markets there, that there definitely seems to be at least a appetite for very high-end earphones almost at a consumer level in Hong Kong. So, ground level sort of street side electronic shops like Broadway, which is a huge chain. It's basically the equivalent of JB Hi-Fi in Australia, I guess. They will sell high-end, like Shure SE846s at that kind of store, which is unheard of. You just don't sell that kind of stuff in Australia. And I suspect it's a couple of things. It's probably, as Ofen and Corinne suggest, it's to do with the climate. IEMs are just more popular when there's more humidity and when it's more hot. But I also think I always feel like the sense that there's that sort of cultural thing, I guess, of when you are in a very dense urban city, which is a lot of Asian societies, Japanese or Hong Kong, or a lot of these cities with very high population density, there's this kind of prerogative to take up as little space as possible. And that means you don't wear the giant headphones on the train, like you don't wear giant Beats, and you don't do the thing where you put up your feet on the seats, and you don't take up as much room as possible, because everyone around you is already stressed out of their minds. So just be considerate, and part of that seems to be also get the smallest earphone that you can, and kind of take up as little space as possible with it.
Yeah, I felt a bit self-conscious, like back in 5 years ago or 6 years ago, when I had the HD25s, which are quite small headphones in their own regard. But every time I put it on, I don't know why, like I always felt like people were judging me for wearing something that was so quote unquote loud, in that it was a thing that was on your head. And for some reason, I just felt like such a tool just wearing it around. So after a while, I just decided, like, you know what, I'm not going to use the HD25s anymore. I'm just going to use my, it was a TF10s. Yeah, it was back then. It was a TF10s, and it just felt right. I don't know why, but yeah.
You feel maybe a little less, you feel more.
I feel like not. I feel like not like an idiot. That's like I don't feel like I'm telling everyone, hey, look at me, I'm wearing headphones, and. Right. In a way, it's kind of projecting, because I always see kids like back then wearing like Beats headphones, which are extremely loud when it comes to like aesthetics and stuff. And every time I look at them, it's like, oh my god, that kid is like, oh, those headphones are really big and all that. I don't know. Maybe I'm projecting, Maybe I'm turning old. Maybe I'm being like, get off my lawn. Am I the judgmental one? But then again, yeah, I'm a reviewer. I'm allowed to be judgmental.
No, it can't be. It must be them.
It is the children that are wrong.
Yeah, they are wrong. Now we've talked about kind of what makes people want IEMs and what we like in terms of the form factor about IEMs. What do you guys think are some limitations that come within the space of IEM designs?
I still think that the best IEMs, and I'm being very specific here, the best IEMs will not be as good as the best headphones. that's just simple physics. It has to do with the size of the driver, the construction, the amount of construction that's required, as well as the fact that IEMs bypass a significant amount of the ear. So no matter what happens, no matter how much IEM technology progresses, it's still just going to be an asymptote where it will just get closer and closer to headphone performance, but it'll never even match it, much less exceed it. So that's one limitation that I think is not, I wouldn't say it's obvious, but a lot of people in the IEM communities don't really like to think about.
All right. Lachlan, do you find anything that you find anything lacking with IEM's designs?
I mean, I wouldn't go as far as Kryn to say that I don't think that IEMs will ever sound as good as headphones, but I do.
The best versus the best. That's the specific one.
I do tend to think that the two areas of key difference between IEMs and headphones, like where you will never have that, where you will never have the two meet, is one in terms of soundstage. You'll never get that sort of sense of openness that you can get with a open back headphone compared to a IEM, and the other is in terms of the sense of scale of the bass, which probably is related, but it's similar to the way speakers are different from headphones in that you even when you get a lot of bass in IEMs, you just kind of tend to feel it in your ear rather than feeling it, I guess, on the sides of your ear, on the side of your face. And then again with speakers, you feel bass in your chest, and you don't get that with the headphones. But to me, I mean, maybe I'm not that fussed about soundstage in general, but I always feel it's just a matter of it's a matter of difference rather than a matter of sort of relative superiority, because I feel like IEMs also kind of deliver us a sort of intimacy or a sort of engagement that sometimes headphones, particularly open backs, don't necessarily achieve. But the other things I should probably say is I feel like the limitations a lot with IEMs is simply there's only so much weight that you can sort of shove in the ear canal, or there's only so much material you can shove in the ear canal before it starts to become very uncomfortable. And then you need to either find solutions for it, like ear hooks or over-ear designs or all sorts of different things. I mean, going so far as custom earphones, because there is just the inner part of the ear is quite sensitive. It's a soft tissue, so it's not quite the same. I mean, headphones, of course, there are limits to what people put on their heads, but the kind of geometry of the inner ear seems to be the other big factor in the limit of how people can design products. And that isn't to say, there aren't products that challenge those limits, like say eye signs from Easy or things like that, where I don't know if you should even consider them IEMs or I suppose ear speakers, if I can commit that minor blasphemy.
Oh, you're gonna make some stacks heads very angry.
Since we're on the topic of eye signs, I'll just say it outright. I think that while they're great sounding, if you use EQ or if you're using a cipher cable, as a standalone product, I think they're just stupid, because the use case of an eye sign is very weird. It's open back and it goes into your ears and is quote unquote compact. So at that point, you would just use headphones, right? And most headphones would outperform an eye sign.
This is totally something that I've been obsessed with lately, actually, and not just with the eye sign, but also with the and I guess these are sort of IEM edge cases, but also with the stacks, the little mini baby stacks.
Oh yeah.
And then recently I've been trying the new Audio-Technica earbud. So the Audio-Technica decided to release a high-end earbud, the CM2000 Ti, and I've been listening to that over the past week. And it's exactly as you describe. I sit here and most of the times I'm thinking, who is this product for? And I tend to think that a lot of the time, these products are being developed for a very niche market of people who basically have everything, already. They have the IEMs or the headphones, but they want something that's very compact and offers zero isolation.
But it's also
Which
very
is-
loud in terms of aesthetics. It's not like earbuds where it's kind of discreet. Like you literally have this weird thing sticking out of your ear. So it's not really
Yeah,
appropriate for office work, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, I know someone who has eye signs who uses them so that they can hear train announcements while they work,
Yeah.
which is quite funny. But yeah, honestly, I think these products are
They-
novelties in themselves, like in sort of like the same way Grados are a bit strange in that they aren't
They're
quite.
very
Yeah.
weird. They're weird products. I can't really justify it. But if I mean, I'm not going to offend anyone. Like if you find a need for it, if you think it sounds great, and you're willing to overlook all of its flaws and weird design, then yeah, sure, go ahead. But
think that
I mean,
kind of-
in a general sense, it is a weird product. Like, yeah.
I think they're kind of akin to KSC 75s kind of in structure, though they do go into your ear instead of just sitting on your ear. But as a form factor, in terms of form factor, it's kind of similar. Just nowadays you have less people wanting no isolation when they go outside, whereas back then I apparently probably wasn't that big of a deal to have no isolation. Then again, excuse me.
Sorry. I was just going to say, a lot of times I actually want, there are situations where I want no isolation.
Yeah.
And that's generally when I'm indoors as well. It's because when I want to be able to hear people talking to me or
Right.
yelling for me from another room or something. So, sometimes I do want products that are sort of easy to wear, like this, to have the advantage of not being, too humid or sweaty or whatever, like headphones. But they still don't have much noise isolation. And but I feel like 90% of that market is currently being met by AirPods. So these little are just very intriguing.
I feel like I'm having some connection issues. Can you guys hear me fine?
Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you. Fine.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. AirPods.
Yeah. Well, I would say, yeah, the market for unobtrusive, zero isolation, in-ear earphones is basically being addressed mostly by the AirPods at the moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Or AirPods, or earbuds, or the KSC 75.
Yeah. Okay. But I don't know. Maybe the iSign form factor came to be as a result of their design philosophy. The iSign kind of represents a very interesting product in the sense that it kind of, to me, represents a little bit of a peek into the future, where you have a driver that's engineered to exhibit as low distortion as possible, and then you have a company, kind of tuning that product by software EQ only, using that low distortion to keep the sound as clean as possible while doing so. And then I think in a lot of cases, this is probably the way to go moving on ahead, when you have driver technology getting better and EQ technology getting better. It probably is something we'll see more often in the future, maybe even in IEMs.
I do want to see more DSP in the market, like or portable DSP, because I know desktop DSP is very commonplace. But the thing that it's not very common, or at least not in the way that I would like it to be, is portable DSP, where system-wide EQ, for one thing, or somehow hard baking the EQ into a cipher cable-like cable. Yeah.
I've actually been seeing this in quite a few products that we've been getting through at Minidisc, I should say. Yeah, I've been seeing this particularly with Bayer Dynamic. They've released several products now. First, their headphones, but they released a new version of their Zalento wireless, like a wireless version of their Zalento, which uses their own sort of app where you do a listening test.
Yeah.
And then bakes in a sound profile into the product. So no matter what you connect it to, it will still have that EQ profile.
Right.
And it's a little. I don't actually. I haven't tried out the app yet because we don't have a demo of the Zolento wireless, but I've tried their similar app that they use with the full-sized headphones, and it's quite funny because we've had customers who come in, they're elderly customers who are quite hard of hearing. This one customer who was referred to us from an audiologist, and they did the whole listening app, and then they had to listen to their headphone, and they said it was one of the most amazing things they've ever heard. And then after they left the store, we had to listen to it afterwards, and it was all just high frequencies. It was like,
oh dear me.
yeah, but
Yeah, but it shows that it works, though, right? I mean,
yeah, definitely. We'll go like, okay, it's not just a gimmick. Like it totally made this headphone sound completely different. So I feel like that's starting to come online, and a lot of true wireless products now have the baked-in EQ settings.
yeah,
In particular, which makes sense, because if you're going to go wireless, you may as well fit in a DSP there. So why not let the user sort of play around with it? In fact, it's more unusual when a wireless product like that comes out which doesn't have a DSP, in the sense that there must be a DSP in there somewhere, but they're just not letting the user sort of change it. I think sometimes with the wired products, they don't put a DSP in, or they don't let the user play with the DSP because they want to maintain the impression that the sound is being achieved, like it's not, there's no sort of electronic trickery or DSP going on.
I think when it comes to wired products, it's just because the fact that it's analog, that's why you're not going to get DSP. That's kind of
well, you can have a digital output.
Some of them do that, though, because it's like, particularly when
you're talking about the iSign.
Not the iSigns, but like particularly, I guess the products that can be used in wireless and wired mode. They obviously DSP the analog like inputs for the auxiliary in
noise cancelling headphones.
Yeah, so that they sound like the same they would sound when you connect them wirelessly, and then you can tell that that's the case because when you turn them off or they run out of batteries, then they just sound completely different, and most often than times they sound horrible. So yeah, like I think that a lot of it is done for appearance's sake, but you're probably right. There's not many products that are just pure wired with a DSP.
Well, I do think it would make sense in the future, especially for IEM, since you do circumvent a lot of the head-related transfer function related resonances and stuff like that by going into an IEM product, which would neatly bring us to talking about one of the more famous IEM manufacturers in automotive. I don't know if does anybody want to explain why automotive is so special in the world of IEMs, and what makes them so infamous in the sense that some people hate them, some people love them.
They're special because they have been long-time players of the industry, like really, really long. I remember the day when the ER4P was released, I believe. I was still in the hobby then. And people weren't happy. Separate topic. But yeah, the reason why Atmotic is so popular is because they kind of follow this diffuse field tuning. And people have kind of made it the benchmark for neutrality for IEMs because of this. But people don't like it because they think it's thin or the bass sucks because, single balance amateurs, you can't really get a lot of bass out of that, which they have tried to mitigate with the ER4XR, but then you have people saying that the ER4XR sounds less natural than the ER4SR, and it kind of snowballs from there as well. You can't please everyone.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to. I only jump in here because for the past few weeks I've been writing brand pages for work where I'm going through the company histories of a whole bunch of different brands. So one of them was Etymotic, and the whole idea, founded by this doctor, I think Killian Mead is his name. where they originally started making products for audio acoustic research, basically lab equipment, because they needed to produce a earphone that would sound consistent, so that when they were doing audiometry tests and research, they would have a consistent instrument to do that with. And then, as you say, Corinne, they have that diffuse field target that they measure all their products against, and then they give you the accuracy score of all their products. And it's kind of funny because at the time you would, I don't know how it would have been at the time, but today I would consider Etymotics as being on the there's very little that's brighter, I guess, or thinner than an Etymotic in terms of overall kind of tone. So they've moved from being what is regarded as sort of neutral to this odd situation where then, compared relatively to the other products on the market, they aren't in the middle. They aren't the median or the average kind of sound. But then there's this sort of moral or values-based assessment that they are the neutral product, which is very funny because
actually, I'm not sure if you knew this, but do you know that the ER4S and the ER4SR are actually the commercialized versions of what Etymotic deems as true neutral? They're actually not what the ideal, like what Etymotic considers as the ideal. That was a model before
B,
that,
right?
Yeah, the B, and that was much brighter, and that was and they just reduced it because people were complaining about how bright it is, despite the fact that it was tuned to be quote unquote neutral. And then people still complain after that, and then they knocked down the treble even more with the ER4P, and then people were like, "Oh, you know what? The treble is fine, but then the bass is shit." So they're just gonna bump up the bass again, and then but all of this just makes me think like, or at least the way that I've been trying to explore the subject of neutrality is that I don't think Etymotic, or at least Etymotic's version of diffuse field, is particularly close to neutral, at least in its current iteration.
So, go ahead, finish your point. I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
What was my point? Oh, my point was like, when I hear ER4, it just sounds like there's a lot of upper mid range. So because of that, I can't really call it true neutral, but I would still call it neutral because some people think that the ER4s are neutral, and I'll say, like, you know what, maybe your ears are tuned to scientific diffuse field, and therefore, you know what, I'll just call it neutral just for that.
Okay, so I hate to do it, but I kind of wanted to go back. The reason why I wanted to bring Etymotic up at that point was, because Etymotic, as you said, Lachlan, is a very, and both of you said, it's a very long-standing company, and it's one of the pioneers in the field of IEMs. Back then, when a lot of the technology came over from hearing aids, it's a famous thing that the balanced armature driver technology was originally used in hearing aids, and then people started putting them into earphones to produce music. And Etymotic, being a research company, as Lachlan mentioned, kind of was one of the first companies that tried to make an earphone using that balanced armature technology, and also achieving what they consider a neutral tuning. And the way they went about it doing so, which one of the more interesting and more contested points of an Etymotic earphone is the fact that they really go very, very deep into your ear canal, and they come with these triple flange tips, and then you're supposed to shove them in very, very deep inside your ear canal. And the reason for that is so they can circumvent the inner ear channel resonance that usually exhibits that usually tends to create a spike in the treble region somewhere around maybe 8,000 hertz, maybe like 7 to 9 or 7 to 10 kilohertz. That's like the region where you have a big ear canal resonance, which the etymotics try to circumvent by inserting the IEMs so deep into ear as to, bypass any resonances. So I'm sorry that I kind of, brought us back there, but that was kind of my idea, and I wanted to, get your point, get your opinion on what you guys feel about etymotic and what you feel about the fit and what do you think makes them so controversial for some people.
Controversial.
In terms of like not that people literally say that they suck. It's just that some people, I guess it's not really that big of a topic. It's just some people just really, really dislike the fit, and some other people just really, really dislike the sound, I guess. And then there's always comes this discussion.
Fit is individual. You can't really tell someone like, oh, your opinion is invalid because you don't like the fit. Because
What I would say, I guess, in terms of fit is, I do find, just out from observing all the customers who come through on Minidisc, and like whenever anyone has difficulty with fitting something into their ears, like whether it's like we've had customers where we can't get a Shure SE215 into their ears because of the way their outer ear is shaped, and the last resort is like the fallback is always anything that's like a straight cable down narrow cylinder design, and that's like etymotic or the Final Audio E2000 or 3000s, where you just kind of, if you can't get like a straight path through the ear canal, then there's no hope for any other design. As for the depth of, I think the more controversial aspect of it is, literally the depth of sort of penetration, basically, that earphone makes into the ear. So I didn't mean to cut you up, Krim. Like, but
well, I mean, I didn't think you're cutting me off. Yeah, but what was I saying? ER4, the fit, deep fit means, like you said, less resonance, and this creates a consistency between customers, because when you tell customers like shove it in as deep as you possibly can, you're kind of making sure that the experience between customer to customer is going to be similar, if not the same, which makes it, and also the whole fact that the ER4s were designed for this fit in the first place. So
I find it increasingly perverse in a way, though, in a way, because it's like we go from speakers to people going, oh no, headphones are better than speakers because we don't have to control for room resonance and blah blah blah, and then people go, oh no, earphones are better than headphones because you don't have to control for the resonance of the outer ear, and then you get all the way down to this extreme of like, no, it's any sort of resonance from the even that bit of the ear canal is completely intolerable. We got to shove it in right as far as we can, and I wonder if there is another step along the way where we're literally just
replace the
attaching
eardrum.
an electrode to the eardrum.
Manufacturer,
we just stimulate the sine waves into our brain that makes us think that we are hearing sound.
Right.
That's the next step.
Yeah, so
or bone conduction, I guess, is the other.
I've tried bone conducting in-ears, and they're not there yet. Let's just say they're not there yet.
They kind of just sound like
to be there?
phone speakers, like those bone conducting stuff.
I didn't quite hear what you said. I definitely agree. They lack any highs and lows. But Lachlan, you.
Oh, I'm just wondering, is it like, because I don't really know about the technology, would it one day be possible to have, high wide bandwidth bone conduction technologies?
It might be. I think the problem is probably like the coupling too. Like, how do you get a consistent coupling to whatever bone you want to use specifically to conduct the sound?
I think eventually what Google will develop is some sort of plug that you drill into the side of your neck or something like that, and then it'll be like the Matrix.
What is it called? The cochlear implant.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
I don't know
rated.
too much about the cochlear implant, even though that's like the cochlear implant that is supposedly the pioneer is from Australia. The
I wonder
Oh, you would.
I wonder how one of those implants sound like.
Well,
I'll have to, you know.
you can be the first of us to try. All right. So talking about the history of IEMs and Etymotic, I don't know. How do you guys feel about Etymotics personally? I think, Kryn, you're kind of not a huge fan of the sound yourself.
I respect the sound. It has good technical ability, and it's kind of tuned in me personally, not neutral, but I can see how people might see it as neutral.
Right.
And overall, when you get the proper fit, it is undoubtedly the best single BA IEM ever built.
Hey,
possibly,
there we go.
Yeah, possibly for even in the future, because I've seen a lot of single BA drivers, and none of them had the foresight, or at least none of them wanted to build it in a way that Etymotic did, where they just told the customers, you have to shove this thing as deep as you possibly can, and overcome the limitations of a single full range balance armature driver. So because of that, the Etymotic does have a bit of treble extension. It does have a bit of bass extension, despite the fact that both sides are kind of mediocre. But as a whole, as a package, the ER4 still stands as a very impressive model, despite the fact that the IEM market is constantly evolving, even till this day.
Right. Lachlan, what is your personal experience with Etymotic IEMs?
I mean, it's funny hearing Kryn talk about Etymotics. He talks about them the same way that I talk about the Sennheiser AC800, where I go, "Oh, I respect the sound." No, it's I had a pair of Etymotics, the ER4 XR, and I really quite liked the sound. The funny thing is that when we demo the Etymotics at Minidisc, we don't use the triple flange tips because we don't have a bunch of them lying around, and it's probably too invasive for customers. So we just demo them with similar to Shure tips, the little, the gray Shure tips, and surprising, not the foams, just the silicone.
Single flange, single cone.
Yeah, single flange, and surprisingly, they don't sound that dissimilar to the way that I remember the way they sound with the triple flange. Maybe you do get more bass extension with the triple flange. The real reason, I think this is what you're kind of getting at with the question, Ofen, is the real reason I kind of abandoned them was because I do find that with that kind of triple flange tip, after a while, they start to get itchy in my ear. I tend to find that my ear feels like, oh, there's something in your ear. Better, produce a whole bunch of earwax or try to reject it because there's something there that shouldn't be there. And it's not super comfortable after a while. But the sound I found, I mean, I wouldn't call it neutral, but it is super clear, is what I would say. Like that peak that they have around sort of the vocal region, to me just makes everything sound really clear. They don't have a great deal of, I guess, layering, and I do feel like you hear the kind of limitations of having the single BA driver trying to go up to that whole frequency range. You do get a sense that the driver is sort of getting pushed a little harder than it should be, but it is totally one of the best single BA sounds that I've heard. The others that I've heard that are single BAs, like the FIO FA, is it FH1?
I don't know.
FA1.
Oh, FA1, and the Audio Technica ADH E50. Those are the other two single BAs that I've heard, where they both take a sort of more warm approach, but they don't have that kind of special quality that the Etymotics have.
The reason why I said the best single BA experience was kind of a grudge against, the Wobbler Prelude.
Oh no, let's not. Oh dear.
Can we please? I want to.
Do we have to? That's fine. Really?
Yeah. So for those who aren't aware, the
we go.
Warbler Prelude is a flagship custom IEM, and it has a single balance armature driver, and it costs $1,100 for a single balance armature driver. And
I feel like you're more offended by the concept of somebody selling a single balanced armature driver.
I am. It's such and it's been carried by the way that they market the product rather than how the product sounds, because it's not a popular product by any means. But you see a lot of reviews out there talking about how it's the next best thing, or how it being a single balance armature model is the reason why it sounds so good. And I don't know, for a good 6 or 7 months, I didn't have the chance to try it out, and I thought, like, you know what, maybe they're right. Who knows? Because I didn't try it out. I was in no position to tell them that, oh, you might be a bit wrong. But when I did try it out, it sounded like a badly built single balance armature driver.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it had no extension.
So this is maybe a good time to stop the IEM, not the IEM talk, the etymology talk. This is an IEM team podcast, but we stopped the IEM talk. Anyways, the etymology talk. It's a single BA, and I think, as we said, it's probably one of the best, if not the best, single BA IEM. And if anything, the one thing that they have with them is the staying power. There's not many companies in this space that have a product they brought out in 1991 and still sell in 2019 with little changes, especially to sound. It's maybe like a few different products, maybe like a Koss, a Grado, and a couple Sennheisers. But aside of that, it's not really.
Maybe I should just clarify a bit. The reason why the Etymotics are expensive, it's not because of. I'll say yes, it's because of R&D, but it's more because of the fact that they use a lot of resources to channel match the drivers.
Yeah,
and so within one batch, you might get like probably just a few pairs out of. So it takes a lot of raw materials just to get that level of channel matching. So you're kind of paying for that as well, not just for the fact that it's just one driver.
I feel like this is a good point where we can kind of segue into a discussion about high-end IEMs. Let's talk about the high-end, and let's talk about stuff in particular. One thing that we're seeing is the trend in prices, and the other thing that we're seeing is the trend in adding technology, be it for marketing purposes, or be it to actually increase the sound quality. But we're definitely seeing a big influx in top-end flagship in-ear monitors, or definitely any types of IEMs that are $1,000 and up. Why do you guys think we're seeing this huge influx in this market? Lachlan.
Well, I mean, the simple answer is that there's money on the table.
So yeah, okay. Let's go. Let's move on. We've got this one in the back. There we go.
But yeah, if there's people willing to pay it, and people are probably around sitting in boardrooms going, "Oh my God, someone else is like releasing a $5,000 product. We need to release one." I mean, it's what the market will bear, essentially. But I guess if you wanted to go into a less, and I don't consider it a cynical thing. I know a lot of people would say that's a cynical sort of interpretation. I'm not for a second suggesting that there isn't a great deal of research and development that goes into these high-end products. But the fact is that research and development simply wouldn't be being conducted in the first place if there wasn't this sort of arms race. The one thing that I thought we should probably put into context, really, that might kind of add to this discussion, is this whole question of because we've been talking about balanced armatures and dynamic, and I guess actually we haven't mentioned dynamic drivers this whole talk, I don't think, but that
Not
whole
directly. Yeah.
that whole distinction in the market today of those two, I guess, species, and then the hybrid products, and then now we're starting to see the electrostatic drivers, and then all the high-end products are almost always, I guess, some effort to combine the best aspects, or try to make the case that the best aspects come from using a whole bunch of these different driver technologies.
They trying. They trying. They
Yeah.
certainly trying.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. So the one thing, yeah, it's kind of a rhetorical question. Obviously, the market currently is pretty good for manufacturers, and people seem to be willing to spend 4-figure sums to purchase an IEM. Though it's kind of interesting to me to see why people want to spend that much on an IEM. It's at this point, what makes people want to go out and spend that much on such a small product? In this case, it's probably depends on the person, but we're definitely having more customers that have the money and that want something specifically in the world of IEMs, and something specifically that's more expensive.
I think it just all boils down to the mindset of the audiophile in general. It's just like this last 10 to 20% of performance, how much am I willing to pay for it? To a regular consumer, it's like, I'm not going to pay double the price for it. Whereas the audiophile just looks at it like, you know what? 10 times the price, that's fine. I can do it. 10% to 20% of the performance, like the extra 10%, go for it. It's all a value of just a personal value of worth in a way. And whether or not more people are seeing more worth in more expensive products, I don't think that's the case. I just think that the hobby itself is getting more mainstream by just by being this hobby where everyone's listening to music. And because more people are getting into this hobby, therefore more people will eventually filter into the much more high-end side of things. It's a bit of a natural progression in a way, because when you have people who are willing to spend triple digits on an IEM, you will be getting a few of those people who are also be willing to spend 4 digits on an IEM, and then you're going to get the crazy people who are also willing to spend 5 digits on that, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I should probably say, just as a sort of, I don't know, counter example, the one of the IEMs that I think that's over a $1 that I think demonstrates why it's over a $1 pretty well is the Campfire Audio Andromeda. And I feel like that's a product where you can kind of understand how they arrived at the price point where they had the Jupiter and then kind of went, okay, so a lot of people were saying that it has a little bit of a dip in the mid-range, so let's add one more driver, and then let's go up one more, sort of grade in price. And the price point that the Andromeda is similar to me, where I look at the Sennheiser HD800, where I feel like in that kind of $1 price range, people will look at that product and listen to it and go, that's quite a good product. That's quite representative of that price range. And you are getting something that I think is quite different from a lot of other products that are under $1,000. Not to say that there are products that people would listen to where they will go, I prefer this way more than the Andromeda. But I generally tend to use the Andromeda as a sort of litmus test for people, where I give it, I let them have a demo of the Andromeda because it is sort of middle road. It's quite good. I think it represents a pretty stellar achievement at that price point.
A lot of shops are doing that, like giving the Andromedas to customers to try and feel them out. I know about 2 shops in Singapore that does this as well.
Because it's to me, it's because you either have if someone listens to the Andromeda and they go, that's really clear and beautiful, but I want something with more bass, then I can kind of go, okay, well, let's have a listen to, say, around the same price range, you start going into the Sennheiser IE800S and that sort of direction. Or if they say, I like this, but I want something a bit like it's pretty easy, I think, for a customer to say what they're getting out of the Andromeda in terms of it being a middle range. So it's a pretty easy reference point above $1 $1.
Yeah, and I think that's very interesting, since to me at least, the Andromeda is definitely not what I would consider this. Here comes the word again, a neutral IEM, but quote unquote. But it's definitely a very compatible sound with a lot of people, at least to my ears. And at this point, I should say I've owned an Andromeda. I've had one, and I definitely I liked it at the time. I still like it. I don't like it as much, but I still like it, and I still respect it. As we say, we respect the sound when we trying to be nice, at least. No, in this case, I do actually respect and like the sound of the Andromeda. It's just that at this point, I prefer others. But the Andromeda to me represents a very interesting product in the current market range, because it's a product that, while most people will agree that it's very, very expensive, also a lot of people will agree that it holds a lot of value. So you have these two things, and which also reflects them, that it reflects in the resale value, where if you buy an Andromeda, even if you buy it for new, $1,100, you will be able to sell it for $800, which, okay, you take a $300 hit, or maybe $250, depending on who you sell it to. But in the world of IEMs, which is a product that, gets into a lot of contact with your body, let's just say, you tend to lose a lot more percentage-wise, especially when it comes to IEMs above $1,000. So it seems that the Andromeda has kind of found its place in the current market as kind of a sort of halo product and a sort of aspirational product for a lot of people, since it's also more known and has a more distinct shape, maybe even at this point. And I definitely think that it deserves its place in the market where it is right now. But it's also, well, I don't know if you guys agree with it, but I think nowadays it also seems to hold even better value now, because prices kept rising. When the Andromeda came out, it was one of the more expensive IEMs. But now you have companies putting out IEMs that are $4,000, $6,000. And, nobody knows where the market will go. The Andromeda being a $700, $800 IEM is not, to me, doesn't even sound that outrageous anymore. That's just how it.
No. You get over the sticker shock of it when you're I guess where I am at Minidisc, where you have the 64 audio stuff.
Yeah.
Coming in for $4,000, $5,000. And I mean, I would say that I really like the U18. I think that's a brilliant sounding product, and it does a lot of things that I like more than the Andromeda. But would I say that it is 3 or 4 times better than Andromeda? No, I wouldn't.
No.
That's interesting. It is that episode situation where the Andromeda is a good value $1 IEM, if you can put it that way. In the same way that the Sennheiser HD800 is like a good value sort of, if you want like I guess I would still consider it a top tier headphone, a top tier headphone for around $1
So I kind of want to ask critical question here, because as some of you may know, he has a ranking list where he ranks basically any of the IEMs that he tends to listen to, that he comes across. He ranks them in tiers ranking from I think S to F, I think, or is there S plus?
No, there's no S plus.
Okay, so from S to F, and having to rank IEMs, and having to rank IEMs that range from prices that are as low as maybe $10 and as high as maybe $4,000, $5,000. Do you find that there's a big correlation in terms of, to you, this is just your opinion, right? But do you find that there's a big correlation between rising prices and a rise in perceived sound quality? Or do you think that the correlation is not as strong as it should be?
I would be bold to say that just having a high price tag already commands a very high expectation for the product in question. And because of that, there will be some placebo in which you expect the product to perform to a certain level. And I do believe that it is influencing my decision making to some extent. But I've already started the list, and I'm only human. People just I keep telling people just use the list as a guide and not take my opinions as gospel. But for me personally, because if you do look at the list, a lot of the expensive stuff are all kilobuck stuff, with exceptions to the EX1000 and the EX800s, I think.
You mean all of the S tier stuff? Or
Yeah, the S and A tier stuff.
oh, okay.
And and to me, yes, there is a correlation. I still haven't heard an IEM that is, let's say, under $500 that I believe plays at the same level as those in the $2,000 range and all that. I don't think. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's my personal biases, or me just thinking about pricing that's influencing all of this. Who knows? But at this point, is the way that I see it. It's like, yeah, okay, something under $500. I don't think that it will play at the same level, because there is technology differences, as well as just the way it sounds just sounds better.
And Lachlan, like you obviously also handle a lot of different IEMs. How do you feel like? Where do you think is the value point, in your opinion, in terms of IEMs? For different people. Let's say for a person that wants something, for a person that has not a lot of money to spend, and for a person that has theoretically endless amounts of money, but they want something that presents a great value but also great performance.
I mean, it's really hard. Yeah, it's a kind of, as I've sort of encountered different customers, we have high school students coming in who buying Andrometers. So it's totally my my perception of value is very skewed now, on the basis that, like, I have my own wallet, but a lot of customers evidently have theirs. I mean, I would say that, generally a customer comes in and they want something reasonable. We'll try the final audio stuff. That's generally pretty decent at, less than $100 to $200. And then you can kind of go into sort of the mid range, where you're starting to look at like, some of the high end FIO options.
Yeah.
And then you have things like,
like iBasso, maybe.
Yeah, iBasso, and we got all sorts of things like there's the classics like the Shure SE535.
Oh, yeah.
They still remain hugely popular. Generally, when customers come in and they want something really, we get a lot of customers who come in and they want either a Shure SE846 or a Sennheiser IE800. Because those are very, very well-known products. And yeah, I wouldn't necessarily, like, I always like to throw the Andrometer into the mix, because I think that's as we said, it's a good value kilobuck product. The other thing I should probably say, then, something that isn't obviously always reflected in the price, or at least something that doesn't come to mind to people when they first get the product, especially given the amount of sort of, I guess, hi-fi products out there that are very, high performance at a very low price, is that I think there is a dollar value for consistency, number one, in the way that the product is made, and any potential of unit variation between the products, but also how much research they've done into the material durability of the product, whether or not the product will fall apart over time, and how willing they are to cover it. And I've generally found that the more well-known brands like Shure and Sennheiser and stuff, they do tend to offer, and this is based on the experience of getting customers in with broken products and seeing how the companies respond and stuff. You do get better warranty support with some of the more well-known names in the industry.
Yeah.
And you have companies like Campfire where they state on their website, hey, anything that you've bought from us, we'll try and repair it. Send it in to us. We have like international, I think it is 2 or 3 years for some of the stuff that you get. And it's not something that you immediately think of, like when you're thinking, oh, I'm getting a great deal because I'm buying this really cheap product that sounds just as good as something that's like $1,000. But after a while, when you get a drawer full of like broken Chinese earphones that you get off AliExpress or something, you do tend to think, okay, maybe I should pay a little more and get something that I guess lasts.
Yeah, and at this point, I do want to say that I definitely have had a good customer experience with Campfire Audio. So I can only echo what you said, is that they do try to take care of their customers, and they do try to make things right. Please, Campfire, sponsor me. No, I'm just kidding. Never mind. Maybe this is the point where I bring in the contra argument against to be bipartisan, because we are not we are definitely a very moderate podcast. We don't hold any grudges, or we don't only support particular companies. We support all companies the same way. And to be bipartisan, I should maybe bring up that Clinical has had some different experience with terms of consistency in high-end IEMs. I don't know how deep we want to get into this, and especially you should mention at this point that these are definitely homemade measurements.
You can edit this out like whenever. I don't really care. So,
maybe we need to edit this.
The thing that happened was very basic. I heard 3. Can I say the brand and the model?
Just go ahead, and we'll deal with it in editing.
I've heard 3 different sets of the Campfire Solaris, which is the new flagship by Campfire Audio. And this is the important distinction to note, is that I heard all 3 personally in my ears with actual music, and I've heard these units, and I thought all of them sounded different. Now, if I posted these thoughts raw as it is, then I don't think people are gonna take me very seriously. It's like, oh, maybe your ears are whack, or your source is different, or whatever. But the difference here is that me being a measurer, I posted graphs of these 3 units, and what do you know? All 3 are different, and that. I didn't expect it to snowball into the way that it did, but it did. And now people are either saying that the Solaris has a lot of unit variance, or the fact that I am inconsistent, or people are taking sides. And me personally, I don't even want to be in this war. I actually did try and reach out to Campfire Audio to try and fix this, but nothing came out of it.
I feel like this was a bad idea to bring this up, because
you can edit it out.
We don't have enough information, I guess, and we don't have enough.
Okay, so just to go in something still politically incorrect, but I would say much more neutral, is that in terms of unit variance, yes, there is still quite a lot of unit variance going on, even in the high end. And it's not just unit variance, it's also due to channel matching as well. It's kind of understandable, because these are companies that are very boutique. They build their products on a case-by-case individual basis, and therefore they might not have the resources like the bigger companies to channel match drivers. So it's kind of understandable, yes, but at the same time, there's also the dilemma in the fact that you're paying hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for these kinds of products. So you do expect a certain level of consistency between units, but then the way that I have experienced it, I don't think that the bar has been set yet.
Yeah, and it should be mentioned that it's actually not just a single company. There's been stories about different companies and different products at different price points some price points where it should be more acceptable, some price points where it should be less acceptable, where you have a lot of unit variation and even channel matching.
If people still remember the Bayer Dynamic fiasco that happened a few years ago with regards to the DT1350, measurements weren't posted then, but there was still a lot of people who realized that, oh my God, different sets of the same model sounded different. So it's not a new thing. It's obviously been happening for quite a long time now. And I'm not trying to vilify anyone. I'm just saying, like, this is a problem currently in the high-end side of the industry. I hope people recognize it, and I hope manufacturers looking into it, and hopefully we'll see less of it, or I will see less of it in the future, because it's not usually the regular consumers that will have the so-called privilege of trying out multiple units of the same model. It's usually people like me who are crazy enough to go out there and put myself out there to be a big, gigantic target.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, sorry.
I would say the one thing that I would really like to see more of, and this goes back to Etymotic, but also for instance, Sennheiser HD800. I think a lot of these questions of channel matching in particular, I think unit variation is just going to happen no matter what. I mean, there's a degree to which you can tolerate it or not. And of course, every manufacturer will have a different degree of tolerance, but channel matching, you want pretty good channel matching for products that are very expensive. But it would be nice to see more manufacturers, when you're selling the products at this high of a price point, to do what Etymotic does and to do what Sennheiser does for their flagship products, which is to include a frequency response graph.
Oh, I was expecting this, and I'll tell you this now: it will never happen, not within the boutique side of high-end stuff, because when it comes to high-end IEMs, and again, I think this is a part that you guys should cut out. A lot of high-end companies in the IEM scene are very against public measurements, very against it, to the point where they would throw shade at me during the product launches. So when it comes to posting the actual measurements on a unit-to-unit basis, it will never happen. It will never, ever happen. Unless, of course, you're Etymotic, where your products are, the reputation of your products are on the fact that it measures well.
I think this is kind of where separate the products for professionals from the products for consumers, where you have Sennheiser and Etymotic making kind of more products geared towards more professional use. Not only like the specific products, but the other products in their product line, and in general what their company does or focuses on. So it kind of makes more sense for them to deliver measurements. Although I should say at this point, there was definitely a time where also Odyssey did deliver specific unit measurements for their over-ear headphones as well. And I think in all cases, I think it's something that doesn't hurt the consumer in any way at all. And it's definitely a practice that, as Lachlan said, I would support. Did you actually get to finish your point there, Lachlan? I wasn't quite sure.
Oh, yeah, basically, yeah. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Having talked about high-end IEMs, maybe this is a good point where we should talk about the opposite end of the spectrum, which is budget IEMs. And this is a huge topic. This is probably a topic where you can fill a whole episode with. But maybe let's quickly brush upon some of our favorites and some of the reasons why we think, or at least I think, budget IEMs are such a fun thing for many people in this hobby, to explore. How about we start with Critic?
The question was what? Why is it so fun?
No, all right. So let me just start, and I'm just gonna talk a little bit about why I like budget IEMs that much. And I think budget IEMs, it's an industry that is definitely mostly coming from China, and it's quite a recent industry. I think over the last 3 to 4 years, it's definitely seen a huge increase in brands and also in their customer base. And nowadays you have a very large selection of IEMs, anywhere between $5 to maybe $50 that are considered, the budget Chinese in-ear monitors. And it kind of has developed into a certain scene of people that, maybe mainly are interested in these cheaper IEMs, because I think a fun thing about them is being able to try so many different sounds and try different products while not being out of a lot of money. And I think there's quite a few people that would do well in when they start up getting into IEMs, purchasing maybe 2 or 3 different budget IEMs if they have the money, to see what kind of different sounds they enjoy, and just to get a kind of a bit of an overview into the world of IEMs. How do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about
when it comes to budget IEMs? Let's say with a price of $200, you're not going to get a lot of people who are willing to spend that $200 on a single product, whereas they'll be much more comfortable with spending, let's say, $40 to $50 on 4 or 5 different products over the course of a year, for instance. So because of that, they're able to experiment with a lot of different sound signatures, with a lot of different technologies as well. So yes, in that case, it is a very interesting side of the market. And in terms of, but a lot of people like to say that I only concentrate on the high-end stuff, but that's not really true. I do have an ear to the ground on what the current hype of the budget market is, and the most recent one I can think of would be the Senfer DT6, and I didn't like that, obviously. But the ones that I do have respect for is the Tin Audio stuff, which is the Tin Audio T2s, not really the Tin Audio T2 Pros, but also the Tin Audio T3s. And they are very well built. They are solid metal shell. They have detachable cables, and all of them is for under $50 mark. And you would never get this like 2 or 3 years ago. So that's just a testament of how far the industry has gone. Because usually, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, you probably get this level of build quality, maybe the sound as well, at about the $100 or even the $200 mark. Obviously, it's still not as good as one of my personal benchmarks, which is the GR07, but it comes scarily close to the point where I just say, you know what? If you're going to buy an IEM, you could buy the GR07, but the build quality is still not going to be as good as this $30 thing. And then you have like even the super cheap stuff are getting really, really good as well. I most recently talked about the MH755. Probably there might be a bit of an overhype effect going on for them right now. But I do believe that they are one of the most impressive budget IEMs in the market today. I think they sound better than the Tin Audio stuff, personally. Obviously, people might lynch me in the comments right now, but that's my personal opinion. And
wouldn't be the first time for you anyways.
And yeah, it is the first time, literally the first time, where a sub $10 IEM has impressed me to this degree. And I really hope that there will be more to come, because that just increases my interest in the budget market.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. You definitely have me intrigued in the Tin Audio T2 now, because I've been hearing about that a lot, and it seems that a lot of people find it quite good. So Lachlan, being as you work at Minidisc, you probably have a lot of customers coming in that are looking for something that is more affordable in terms of IEMs, because I know a lot of younger people, they don't tend to take care of their IEMs that much. So it doesn't really make sense for them to buy a very expensive IEM. So how do you feel has the market developed in that segment?
Well, I mean, definitely we don't get as much of a range of, I guess, under $100 or even like that kind of ultra kind of under $20 budget IEMs at the store. just because it's very hard to keep up with the number of releases that are coming out at that price, and it's hard to know what's a sort of flavor of the month and what is something that's going to be a consistent seller. Because by the time maybe we get them into the store, it might be that that's already not. It's already someone's cracked one open and found out that one of the drivers is just a bunch of solder, and then it's no one wants it anymore. As a general kind of thing, though, I totally agree with you, Ofen, where it's especially when you're starting out in the sort of craze, it's a lot of fun, right? You have all these very cheap products. It's not a huge outlay to get a whole bunch of different sounds, a whole bunch of different data points, essentially, where you can sort of start to triangulate your own preferences based on all these things that you've tried. And then there's that magic hype component of people. It's never like, this is a really good $20 IEM. It's always, this is a really good $20 IEM that sounds just as good as like a $1,000 product. Right? It has to be a giant killer. It has to be like Andromeda KZ clone kind of like product where people have to feel like they're starting out. But just like I did with the RE0, I remember this. I was going like, these people spending so much money on the ultimate ears, TF10 or whatever, and I'm getting something that's like half the price or a quarter of the price that's just as good as this. And that's how that's me as a smart consumer. I'm in the know because I've done the research and I'm getting something. And then like a month or two later, Hi-Fi Man dropped the price by like 50% or whatever it was, and then I was like, but
feels bad.
But yeah, there's but it's funny because it's also I've spoken with I don't know if you've ever spoken with Nathan Wright or
sounds familiar.
He's a writer for Headphonia, and also he's former writer for Headphonia. He also has his own stuff.
I haven't spoken to him, but I've read one of his articles at least.
Yeah. So I've had discussions with him where he really doesn't like the trend because he finds it sort of ethically suspect of selling these very cheap, essentially disposable products that are very cheap, that kind of have very high failure rates, I guess you would say, or you kind of move on very quickly and then you start thinking like, why did I spend $160 on 8 different earphones when I could have bought one product? When it's sort of that mid-fi hell situation sometimes people find themselves in.
I mean, for the IEM scene, I think mid-fi hell just changes into chi-fi hell.
Yeah. It's so much easier to get. I like when I started down in the hobby, I would totally, I did that, like bought all sorts of kind of cheap, crazy stuff, and it was really fun. These days, I actually find that quite exhausting because it's really hard to drill down through a billion different,
I'll agree. Yeah.
Threads are simple now, right? It's not Discord where you go into Discord and it's like a million people talking at the same time about whatever is the new hotness. Like it's to me, that's like, okay, I'm glad that that's a thing that people are getting a lot of fun out of. I personally don't have sort of the time or the energy to go through that stuff anymore. So I just kind of go like, oh, my favorite company is releasing a new thing that is over $1,000. I guess I'll be excited about that because that only happens once every, year or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you guys, I don't know if you guys ever got into it, but I kind of wanted to bring this up because I remember distinctly getting into it and posting on Reddit, about how I like budget IEMs, and I think I posted a picture and had like 5 different pairs of Chinese IEMs that I bought back then. And looking back to it, definitely I can see in a sense that a lot of these things that I bought either died on me just suddenly, or I just never ended up using really all that much and putting somewhere. And in hindsight, I see it as both good and bad. In one sense, I did spend I spent money that I didn't need to spend, and I created waste that I didn't need to create. But on the other hand, I also, gained a lot of experience for myself, and being able to hear different sounds and explore different sounds and, find what I like for myself was definitely a fun experience. And even, you know, ordering something and not knowing what it sounds like, and then, you know, receiving it because it takes a while from China, so you have to wait for it. And then, you know, listening to it for the first time.
Counterpoint is like, you know, I don't think we will grow out of buying multiple IEMs because we can. I mean, me personally, like, I don't have like 5 different sub $50 IEMs, but I do have a lot of kilobuck stuff. And I do have the same problem.
Weird flex, but okay.
I mean, yeah, it is my hobby. I save up for it and all that. But yeah, I do realize as well. I was like, oh my god, I have all of these expensive stuff and I still don't use it. And it's the same mindset as the budget people. It's like, I have all these expensive quote unquote things, because to them, like $100 is also quite expensive as well.
Yeah.
And they're also thinking like, wow, oh my god, I have all these expensive things. I'm not even using half of them. I get it, and I still haven't grown out of it. But me personally, yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. I don't think it's exclusive to an individual price bracket. I just think it's human nature that we want to hoard the things that we like.
I mean, I'll tell you the blessing and the curse of working at like an actual headphone store is I had to constantly remind myself, like, I don't have to buy this thing. I can come in and listen to it at work. And it's only if you know, the Marie Kondo thing of it, only if, you know, it fills my heart with absolute joy, and I must own it. Like, I feel that feeling of, this is fantastic. I love it. I've listened to it every single time I go to work. I want to have one of these at home. And so I can kind of like force myself to filter my purchases that way, which is but at the end of the day, I like to think like, and that means that it's okay for me to keep buying all this stuff, you know.
I mean, yeah, to be fair, like, having access to a headphone store is a huge contributing factor to you not wanting to buy stuff. I mean, me personally, whenever I'm back in Singapore, my urges to buy stuff are considerably diminished, to the point where I don't even want to buy anything. Yeah.
That's interesting. So I don't know if that's for every person, but definitely when I was in Asia and I had access to all these IEMs and all these headphones, which I never was able to audition in Europe, you know, where the IEM market is really just leagues smaller than in Asia. It's not even comparable. But when I had access to all of that is when it, you know, actually made me wanna get into it more, and made me want to go out and buy one for myself. So I feel like it might vary from person to person.
I think it's a slight difference, because you're like going back to Asia as kind of like this tourist experience, right? I'm going back
maybe. I lived there for a year, but
yeah, I mean, like, in terms of the scene, the IEM scene, you're going from like middle of audio nowhere into like the Mecca. And then for someone like me, it's like I'm going from, holy shit, I want to buy everything on the internet, to like going back into Singapore, getting to try all of this stuff and be like, yeah, I don't have to buy this anymore. That kind of feeling.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, definitely at this point I think I would like to say is we should support our local retailers, and we should support the brick and mortar stores in the audio industry, because a lot of people don't have access to being able to audition stuff in person. And you know, the only way we can keep that alive is by supporting our local shops and businesses. Okay, now that we have that done, I think we can't really do an episode about IEMs and not mention the aspect of custom in-ear monitoring. So I don't want to get too deep into this, because again, this is a huge topic, just like all of the other things we talked about. But I think all of us have experience with custom in-ear monitors. Is that right?
Of course.
I'm happy to say that yes, I do now have a custom earphone.
All right.
Oh, congratulations! What did you get?
This is a recent experience.
Oh, this is an interesting thing. So I got long story short, it's not an actual brand that you will have heard of, because it's a DIY job. Not that I did it, but I have a pair of Michelle Limiteds the Estel and Kern ones where I was trying the 64 audio 2-pin cables, and for some reason the pins on the 64 audio cables are thicker than they are on a standard 2-pin connection. So when I put that 2-pin in and then I went back to the stock cable, it was suddenly too loose. And I couldn't use the IEM anymore because it would just fall off the connectors. And at the same time, a friend of mine, Thomas, who you may have seen in some of the videos that I've done for the YouTube channel, he was starting to get into this whole experiment of making custom IEMs, and he still is. And I got the okay from him that, you know, it's okay for me to start saying that he made these customs. Basically, he reshelled the Michelle Limiteds for me based on my individual design spec. And I've been using those with great interest, because there's all these things that I didn't think about with customs that I'm only really starting to encounter now.
So how about let's say, all right, let's get Kryn to walk us through just roughly the process of getting custom IEM, since I think you have the most of any of us.
Custom IEMs, you get an ear impression, which is basically someone putting a putty into your ears and then getting the shape of your inner ear, and you send it off to the company. The company uses it to build a shell with all of the sound component things inside, and there you go, you have your custom. And because the custom is to the exact shape of your ears, it provides theoretically very good isolation as well as very high comfort, theoretically. But usually things might happen and get suboptimal fits, and you have to send it off, and that's the risk.
So Lon, how did it work out for you? How did you feel like as a first-time CIEM buyer? How did you think the experience was? Was it something that you thought was a big I don't know, nuisance, or do you think it's like something that's worth it in the end?
Sorry, was that to me?
Yeah, I wanted to know like what your thoughts were on your first impressions and all that.
Definitely, the experience of getting them done was a lot like getting the impressions basically was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Like, it wasn't that much of a fuss to get impressions. So with the Richelles, as I call them, because they're reshelled Michelle's hilarious.
Amazing. Amazing.
I've found that I'm getting, like, when I get a seal with them, it's really good. I'm not getting a seal 100% of the time, but it's this kind of awkward thing where I go, I don't know if I want to reseal, like I want to get them refitted, because they feel very, very close. And it's only if I move my head around quite a lot that I will kind of lose the seal. And I found that using a little bit of, like, you know, lubricant, because there's like hearing aid lubricant you can basically buy.
There
is. You put that in. Yeah. Like, it's like a kind of gel. I bought some at the audiologist, but I think Westone makes some. And I think you can actually just use actual lubricant, like actual KY jelly or something. It's essentially, as long as it's sort of safe for your body, you can use that to basically make up for minor issues with the fit. So I've sort of been exploring that, and Thomas has said, hey, if you need them to get refit, they will do that. And I'm just sort of in this weird situation where I go, well, it works perfectly fine if I lube them up. And so I don't know if I really want to
confession, I've never actually used like a custom lube before.
I say give it a go. It actually works surprisingly well. Like, no kidding, like it does really get you that extra 10% in terms of having that consistency of seal, and it makes getting them in and out a lot more comfortable. It just
if you don't want like a lubrication solution, Complite does make foam tape where you wrap it around the tips, and
that bugs me conceptually though, because I've you know, I went to all this effort of saying I want them in this color, with this design. I don't really want to put a bunch of like
What-
Like,
What's
I hate
maybe
the word.
possible is sometimes, depending on how how big the problem is, sometimes you can describe
polish?
where you're losing shield. You just put a little bit of nail polish or resin on top to create a bit more.
Yeah.
More.
Better to let Thomas do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Apparently, I don't have a very prominent second bend, so it doesn't really hook into my ear as much as it maybe
Goes like straight in, or
almost. Like, I don't know. I should probably, upload
Honestly,
pictures
I
or
don't like
something.
second bend customs. They feel very uncomfortable for me. I prefer it like stopping at the first bend and that's it. Going any further, it just makes it irritating.
at this point, how many companies actually do go to the second bend? I think most of them only do first bend, right?
Yeah, most of them do first bend, but
Yeah.
oh man, I can't remember. I know Spiral Years does second bend. They exclusively do second bend.
Probably to
I'm
do
not
with
sure
their
about the
technology then, in some case. I
It's
don't know.
very weird looking at something that's like, oh, this is what the inside of my ear looks like. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't look right. Like it looks way more convoluted and like all these weird shapes and curves that are going on. Then you kind of like, I thought I had normal human being cartoon ears that are just like a hole in the side of your head.
Like,
But in the same sense,
you should
go
hear
ahead.
the comments that people like have about my customs because my ears are about double the shape, double the size of an average ear. And everyone looks at it and is like, what is this? It's like these are customs. And like, those are too big to be customs.
You start getting all self-conscious about.
Yeah,
like,
Yeah, exactly.
you're
I'm like,
shaming now.
are you sure it's that big? I don't think it's that big.
customers make my ears look fat. Like,
Need vertical stripes, right? Oh no, was it horizontal, or what makes you slimmer?
Vertical.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
thanks. Now we got that fashion advice in.
Make you look. They emphasize your sort of latitude.
I like that word.
Yeah.
It's definitely yeah. It's the opposite of a platitude. No, okay. enough stupid rhymes. Now I wanted to talk about my experience with Ultimate Ears, because they do it a little bit differently. They don't do impressions anymore. Well, they still do in some cases, but some of their retailers now do the impression by 3D scanning the inside of your ear, or your outer ear, and also your first band and stuff like that. And I had that done, and on one hand, I thought it was really cool, to sit there and have your ear scan and then be able to look at the 3D model of the inside of your ear. That was really cool to me. But then I sadly didn't have the best experience with the fit. So when I first received them, they didn't fit properly, and I had them refit. So I sent them back, which everybody in the shop, in the UE retailer, and everybody from UE side, they were all really, really nice to me, and they took care of me as a customer for sure. But the first time I received them, not only did the shell have some imperfections, but also it didn't fit properly. So I had to send it back. And I think this is where like a huge problem lies with custom in-ear monitors, is that when they don't fit properly, they're not even as comfortable as a universal in-ear monitor.
Yeah.
And being
it could just sound different from the demo unit.
Yeah,
that's like, with my N8. Oh god.
Yeah, that's another thing. A lot of times, the demo unit will have more bass or more treble. A lot of times it has to do with the seal, so and the insertion depth. So that the treble and the bass may sound different when you demo a unit and then you receive your unit, and it might not be the same depending on the brand. But what I think is the big problem is that when it doesn't fit, it's less comfortable than a universal IEM, and you basically have to get it refit. And having your IEM refit takes the time, and after you already wait a month to receive, or even more than a month to receive your custom in-ear monitor, then also to have to wait another month or so to get them to a point where they fit properly, and having to send them out again and test fit them and send them out again, that's probably where some people will have a bad experience. So I think with custom IEMs, it can go a lot of ways. It can go one where people will absolutely love it, the whole experience, and they love the comfort and the isolation and the sound. But some people, depending on their ears or depending on their luck, even they will just have a really bad experience with custom IEMs and maybe not ever, want to buy another one again, I think.
I'll say this: if you are lucky, or if you're just normal, I guess, a custom IEM is going to be worth it, of course. But if you have problems along the way, then yeah, that's gonna influence how you view the value of customs. But if you do get a good seal, a good comfort, good fit, and everything, the combination of isolation and just good comfort, I think, is second to none. For example, you have Etymotics, which has undoubtedly higher isolation, but the fit is horrible, me personally, because it's so deep, it's so intrusive. You're not going to listen to them for hours on end. Whereas if you pop it into the customs, sure, you're going to get lower isolation, but you're going to get a much more comfortable experience that you're going to be using for hours and hours on end. I personally have slept with my IEMs, custom IEMs, and didn't really have a problem. Whereas I remember sleeping with, not even with Etymotics, but with just regular bullet type shell earbuds, and my ears were like completely shot by the morning.
I definitely will say that whole the degree of isolation and that the comfort of the fit, if it all goes well, like when it's all nice and lubed up, I guess, it's brilliant. Like it, the Michelles I bought on a whim because they were really fun sounding. They're not really critical listening earphones compared to, say, the Andromeda. But now that I've got them done up as customs, I really love them. Like it's just, and I don't even think they sound all that different from the stock units. It's just the fact that there's such high isolation. You just hear a lot more detail because there's no background noise masking it or whatever it is. And you feel like you can listen for hours and hours. And it doesn't develop any sort of sore or hot spots in your ear, which is really good. That's part of the reason why I'm a bit nervous about getting them refitted, is because they're already really close there, and I don't really get hot spots. So I feel like it's almost like a really good, like perfect fit. So I don't want to mess with it too much by going through that whole refitting process, even though, for me, I'm in an ideal situation where I'm basically like I'm face to face with the person who does it, and it's easy to get in contact with them. It definitely is something that's daunting, I think, that whole process for potential people. And of course, there's also the question of resale value, where with customs, you can't really. It's much more difficult to kind of buy a pair and then go, okay, I'm ready to move on now. No one else is going to buy them off you unless
you basically give them a discount that is as much as they would spend reshelling the IEM, basically.
That's a real custom now.
Do reshells now.
Wait, so Lachlan, what did you say right now?
Sorry, I just feel like there's less people doing reshells now. I don't know if that's true. It just feels like this.
I don't know for sure.
I would
maybe more.
Think so, yes, because
maybe more companies are focusing on their own products instead of reshelling. Yeah. No. I think Corinne just asked you a question though, right? I think
Yeah. Are you gonna get a real custom now, Lachlan?
Oh, well, I mean, I got 2 sets of impressions taken, right? So I'm staring at it right now, another box of impressions, and I'm trying to work out what to do with the second pair of impressions. Oh, here's a question. Do impressions go off? Here's something that I couldn't work out. Like, does the actual material, I mean, apart from, my body physically changing, do the actual impression molds, do I have to... Oh.
Yes.
How long do I have to use
but it's not that short. It's probably in the time span of, let's say, 6 months or 1 year.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out what to do with the second pair. There's a whole bunch of options that I'm considering, a 64 audio or a Empire Ears or something. Yeah, but it's all they're all pretty expensive.
For sure.
I'm always surprised particularly with 64's range, where they're actually now their top end range of their universals are their more expensive products. Their customs actually started a lower price. They don't make universal versions of a lot of their custom IEMs, which I've found surprising.
It's hard.
But yeah,
because they're using the tubeless stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking of getting an N8, perhaps.
I thought you didn't like the N8 because it was too shrill or bright or something like that.
Well, the funny thing is, I've been listening to it again recently, and I thought it was actually, when I realized that it's actually slightly warmer than some of the other ones, and I thought, okay, I don't know. I don't know.
What company?
Too much.
Excuse me. What company is the N8 made by again? I don't know.
64.
Oh, okay.
It's a 9-driver hybrid model.
Oh, of course, it's a 9-driver, and that's why it's called the N8. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's called the N8 because they used to have an A8, and they want some parity, and therefore they were like, you know what? It's made by Nathan East, so we're just going to call it the Nate. And
couldn't they have called it the A9?
No,
I'm sorry.
It's endorsed by Nathan, and therefore they wanted it the Nate, and therefore it's like, you know what? You can just remove that one extra pesky little driver and just call it the N8. There we go. Now it sounds beautiful.
Yeah, and you can say it's literally pronounced Nate now.
I would never say Nate. I'll forever call it N8.
Why? It sounds almost the same. It's the 64 audio Nate.
It's so weird. I don't know, because when it goes like, it's called, there's the A4T, the A6T, the Nate, and then the A12T, and then the A18T. It's like, why?
Yeah, I don't like product names that are proper nouns. Like we have a TV channel here, like a Netflix equivalent called Stan.
Oh.
It's just called Stan, like the guys. And I was like, I don't like these proper noun like products where it feels weird to be owning or a service or a product which is just the person's name.
Hey Alexa, hey Siri. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, like, I mean, I guess it's a bit weird. It's a bit informal. I like my weird combinations of letters and numbers. And
I just realized that everybody that has an Alexa or a Siri just probably triggered their device.
Yeah,
I'm sorry if that happened.
And like everyone's getting a whole bunch of
never apologize
detergent, or maybe they're getting a bunch of custom IEMs delivered to their house now.
Yeah, they will get advertisement for custom IEMs for the next at least 3 months on Google.
Yeah, I want to do something with this custom impression. I'm not sure what. I feel like the N8 is the best candidate because I can't get it as universal.
But so you do want something that's from your store then, or did you? What do you consider stuff from outside?
Yeah, sort of for practical, reasons. It's much
basically I understand.
for me to get a custom from the store. So I'll probably end up doing
just a point of warning. If you're going to get the N8, I don't think you should if you like the demo unit, because they sound different. The custom and the demo unit.
I know you've got that that history with it. Particularly, I've been
as in now
about it.
The problem has been resolved, but now the real problem, which cannot be resolved because of structural differences, is the fact that the custom N8 and the demo unit N8 are different sounding and built differently. So, but if you want to, I can mod the N8 for you, make it sound a bit closer to the demo unit. Because I don't know what 64 is doing.
I guess we'll take this offline in terms of like, because I want to really drill down into that discussion about the outcome of your experience with the N8.
The outcome was amicable. It's just like,
sure, thanks. I mean, like specifically, the basis of the conclusion, like, is it that other people have been having the experience because like I remember from reading what you were writing was that because of perhaps the geometry of your ear, it was difficult for them to target the demo.
That was the theory, yes.
Yeah. I don't know if that was like, if that has been an experience of other people getting the N8 or what.
I would say this is that I've tried about 2 other custom N8s as well, and both of them sounded the same as my current custom N8, unmodded.
Right.
So, and of course, these custom N8s sounded different from the demo unit N8s. So that's just my warning, is that if you liked the demo unit N8, I don't think you should go for the custom N8 because they're different. It's just undeniable now is that they're going to sound different. They're built differently, and therefore they sound different.
Sure. And full disclosure, I should say 64, in Australia, we are the official distributor for 64 Audio in Australia. I've always, sort of been surprised that there is no universal N8.
I've been surprised at that as well. Yeah.
Well, maybe it's maybe they
as the hybrid in which it would sell like hotcakes.
Maybe they'll release one eventually because I think there is a market for universal.
It's so good, and they don't want to release it. I don't know why, but it's their company.
So if you hear this, 64 Audio, please release the N8 as a universal. Please do it.
Well, I could probably send them
probably
send them an email. Hey.
Are you saying that you have more reach and more influence than our huge podcast? That is impossible, frankly.
Well, I stare at that universal demo with the N8 all the time and go like, damn, I just want to buy one like right now, just on the spot. Like, why not?
Yeah. Maybe you should.
Have you tried the Z1R?
No, not yet. Yeah,
I would say it's similar to the universal N8, honestly. So if you like that, maybe.
Speaking as someone who owns an Andromeda stainless steel, it's very funny that I still think the Z1R looks a little too blingy to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I actually don't like the aesthetics of the Z1R that much, but I think sound good. It just sounds good, and therefore I bought it.
I just saw it recently, and it looks really, really big. Like the shell.
It is huge.
I didn't see it in real life, but I saw a picture of somebody holding it in their hands, and seeing the scale of those things in somebody's hand just makes me go, "Wow, that's a statement right there." If you wear those in the sunlight and the reflection catches that, people will know that you have.
It is fancy.
Yeah,
that's it. Like if people are looking at my Z1R, and because I make the Z1R look small. So
okay.
my scale is different.
Big brain, small IEMs.
Big ears.
Yeah.
All right.
I would very much like to hear the Z1R. As someone
me too. Same.
I'm
really interested.
I might send it over because at this point, like I'm not even using the Z1R that often. I keep defaulting back to my N8.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh yeah.
So no, never mind. We're not gonna get into that.
Oh, come on.
I was simply gonna ask you. I don't know if you want to talk about it, but what you ended up modding in your NA?
I did talk about it in my technical breakdown. If anyone would want to link it somewhere. Basically, what happened was there is a back vent for the dynamic driver, and I just stuffed foam into it. It sounds simple, but it's basically a very specific placement of the foam, and it reduced the power of the dynamic driver and removed the bleed, but it still kept the sub bass.
Okay.
So what basically just makes it retained the rumble but made it cleaner, and now it's amazing. But unfortunately, because it's not stock form, I can't really tell people to buy it because stock form N8 is kind of bad, honestly.
Really? You mean the custom then? You're not the
the stock form custom N8. It's very bleedy. It's very dark. It's very muddy. Yes,
okay,
that's the appropriate word to call it. Yeah. So that's why now I'm trying to like backtrack a bit with regards to the amount of attention the N8 is receiving, and just saying like, you know what, if you like the demo unit N8, don't get the custom N8 because they're going to sound different.
That's really unfortunate. Maybe 64 can revise their demo units a little bit.
I did tell them of my solution.
That they'd revise the final product, as apparently that's what people prefer. But yeah,
I mean, it obviously would be a more ideal solution to get closer to the demo universal as the target.
yeah,
It's
than to do it the other way
it's definitely a thing that they should do, because people are going to buy the NA based off of their impressions of the demo unit. So if the demo unit doesn't sound like the real one, I wouldn't go as far as to call it false advertising, but it is a bit disingenuous in a way.
but I've had. Oh, so go ahead.
Oh, I would say I would absolutely expect, especially for a smaller, like, kind of boutique company like 64, where they will be looking at the feedback they get from basically
sure.
every single custom unit to work out if they can, change anything for the next units. The nice thing about sort of bespoke manufacturing like that is that every single unit can be, different. You're not, you aren't restricted by having a plastic mold, like an injection mold, where you have to, you pay a 10, 20, 30,000 US dollars for the plastic injection mold, and you can't change that mold unless you want to chuck that away and waste another $30,000. It's a little easier when you're making each unit on demand.
I wanted to throw in, like, well, we're already at this topic, that I've had this conversation with salesmen from a couple different in-ear monitor shops, and most of them will say that, oh, there will be a variance between the demo unit and the custom unit. Obviously, you'd hope that the variance is small, but I've already experienced quite a noticeable difference. To me, I think I noticed the difference in the Vision ears line. I forgot which exactly. I think there was the VE5, where I listened to the demo, and then I listened to somebody else's custom, which obviously is not ideal to stuff somebody else's custom in your ears. But there was definitely a noticeable difference, and it mainly was the difference in the bass and treble region. Where
the fit.
Yeah, you have problems with the fit. And that it's probably really hard. There's a reason why they sound different, and there's much more smarter people and more gifted people that know about the engineering that are working to get the demo units close to the custom. And it's obviously not easy, but just it's definitely something that would be nice for the consumer to know, that what they're hearing is what they're gonna be getting and not something different.
Yeah,
because I had that experience with my UE18 Plus 2, which the demo unit definitely had more treble than the custom unit ended up having.
Yeah, that's primarily the reason why I stuck with the universals for my 18 Plus. Even though I could have gone custom, I knew that the custom was going to have less treble, and the universal 18 Plus was already teetering on the brink of having too little treble for me.
Yes.
So I knew the moment I went to custom, I'll be like, oh shit, this is gonna sound bad.
It doesn't sound bad, but it's definitely darker than I'd like.
But not that bad is too strong of a word. More like it's like I'm not gonna like this anymore. Yeah.
And then it's definitely something that I noticed, and that it's something you learn when you get these things, and now I know. And well, I still have this IEM. It's just, sadly, it didn't sound like the demo. So yeah, that's just how it is. I hope that I've got another custom IEM on the way. By the way, I don't know if anybody else. I've got a Kumitate Labs Kale series.
Oh, okay, yeah. That was like 2 years ago.
Well, it wasn't 2 years ago. It was
almost
on September 2017 when I ordered it.
Yeah, almost.
Oh, wow.
Almost there.
Wow.
The story is though.
Ito-san, please.
Yeah, I did get some sort of a semblance of an ETA recently, at least. But the thing is, the story was me and two friends from Singapore. Excuse me, two friends from Singapore and me. Gotta be correct.
And I.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. English is not my first language. My two Singaporean friends and I. No, when I say my, I need me, right?
I think I need to hear the rest of the sentence to
All right.
understand the
Anyway,
question you just asked.
so us three, let's just say us three, went to their company Commentator Labs in Tokyo, in their office, and we demoed their stuff. And all three of us ended up ordering a Sirius, so SIRIUS, Commentator Labs, a custom IEM from them, and we ended up going for a custom design where he hand cuts abalone, like from muscles and stuff like that, and he makes a multi-layered lacquered design that looks really, really beautiful and pretty. And because he's just a single person doing all these designs, and he also broke his arm at some point, which delayed the manufacturing even further. The waiting list is quite long, since it's a quite lengthy process to do those designs. And I think right now, I don't know if he's even taking orders, but last I heard, his waiting list was like 2 to 3 years.
But
or
wouldn't
something.
your impressions be invalid after that length of time?
Hito-san would make a negative, and the negative will retain itself much better than.
Oh no, but I mean like as in
impressions.
changes in
Yeah.
your
Oh,
your
okay, like
shape
the
of your
physical
ear.
ears
That
themselves.
is
Yeah.
possible. It kind of depends on the person and depends on at which age you are. Especially if you're still growing, your ear's shape will change more. But also if you gain or lose a lot of weight, say you lose 30 kilos, maybe your ears will change, or you gain 20 kilos, maybe your ears will change, or maybe even like you go to a different climate, your ears will change. So this is all stuff that I hope really that they will fit, but I don't know yet. I don't know at this point.
Just don't skip leg day, and you'll be fine.
I never skip.
I've heard that you if you wear your customs more, then they're like braces. The shape of your ear will at least it won't change as much.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I can see that.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know if it's true. Feels a bit weird, but it's
Gonna
possible.
need a peer-reviewed medical journal for that, but I can see it.
Oh yeah, it seems like a very expensive experiment. Really, I don't know.
Well, at least we know that there's still a lot of things to discover in this field. So it's definitely still an emerging market, and there's still room for innovation, which definitely keeps us interested, right?
The other, I don't think we'll have time for it today, but the other thing that I have gotten very interested in recently is the market for earbuds.
Oh no!
For sure. I mean, it's definitely also a market, and talking about limitations of in-ears, there's some people that will straight up refuse to use anything that enters their ear canal. So there's definitely lots of people that come asking for earbud recommendations, and I always struggle to give recommendations because, well, first of all, I haven't heard that many, and second of all, I don't know where to go with them. I know that there's loads of them around $5 to $10, but I don't know what the market is like at
the market for earbuds are much more I want to say experimental. No, it's not experimental. It's very weird because
niche.
It's not niche, because surprisingly the market is quite huge, especially in countries like Indonesia, where you have a lot of enthusiasts that dabble primarily in just earbuds, and to the point where they just think that IEMs are the inferior piece of equipment. And
we recently had a customer from Thailand who said, that they're very popular in Thailand, and I think it has
in
something to do
Thailand
with
as well.
humidity, and also it might be safer in some places, especially with traffic. They might actually want less isolation.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, this goes back to the discussion about whether earbuds are considered IEMs or not. In this sense, I don't. I think by definition. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just say, on an average person on the street, if you say earbuds, they'll think you're talking about earphone.
Earpods.
Like just any earphone. Yeah, any earphone is an earbud. is what it is. Like
True.
for a lot of people, that is the
Yeah.
True.
Whereas we have that, specific differentiation between the
Nomenclature.
open earbud and then the in-ear earphone. And then
Yeah,
you
you're
have
right.
sort
For
of,
most people, it's like one on the same category of product.
yeah. And then you have like the weird kind of almost high, like something like an AirPod where it's sort of not exactly completely open design. It is designed to channel the sound towards your in-ear, but it doesn't need a seal. Or like a lot of the Bose designs are very similar, where there is some silicon.
Are you
and
familiar with Final Audio's pianoforte line?
I've seen it. I've never heard.
Yeah,
one.
so those are kind of like it's not really an IEM, but it's also not really an earbud. Actually, it's closer to an earbud. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they have like that weird metal nozzle? Are those the ones?
That would be the I need.
Oh, that's the
one of-
lap. I think.
Yeah, that's
the
a lap too. That's like the horn-shaped design that does go into your ears as well, but it doesn't seal in your ears. So it's not really an IEM, but I wouldn't go as far as to call it an earbud as well. It's very weird. Very weird. Sounds bad, honestly, but don't let the
I haven't
fine
had a
people
chance to
hear
listen.
Don't let Hot listen to that. Yeah, but no, definitely earbuds is a topic. It's just I sadly cannot offer a lot of input on it because I just lack the experience. I know personally, probably if somebody asked me, I want an earbud. I don't want one of those things that go into your ear. I just want those that sit on your ear. I'd honestly probably recommend earpods at this point. Like
earpods are nice. Earpods are nice. I would honestly say that the earpods are better than the VE monks.
I'd say that. I don't know if they are like 6 times the price or 7 times the price better, but I think from the tonality, they are more to my preference because they don't have as much upper mids and as much lower treble. So I think the VE monks sound kind of lean and a little bit bright. Whereas the earpods are a little warmer.
Yeah, the AirPods do a surprisingly good job, I think. They just make my left ear hurt after a while. So
that doesn't fit right.
Yeah, just after a little bit of time, like after an hour or so, which is annoying. So, and then recently I've been listening to that new Final Audio, like not the Final Audio, the Audio Technica, the CM2000 earbud, and I was like, oh, I want to talk about this, but then I realized I have no idea about the earbud market. Like, I don't know how this compares to.
I need to take a look at that Audio Technica one day.
Well, that Audio Technica just sounds like how I remember earbuds sounding. Like that I always remember. Like it brings back everything that was good and bad about that design, right? Like it doesn't isolate. There's entire chunks of the bass response missing, but the soundstage is very open and the vocals are classic Audio Technica. But then I was like, oh, have they changed? Like then I started looking at all these Chinese earbuds on Pen on Audio and that kind of thing, and going, oh, are new earbuds different? Do they actually have bass? Like do they? There's
that one thing with the supposed biocellulose driver. That one, I think it's something with a 6. I don't know exactly what the name was.
Yincro X6.
Yeah, Yincro X6. That supposedly has a little bit better bass extension for an ear.
I do like it. I do like the Yincros. I almost bought one, but then I don't know why I didn't. I would buy one now, honestly.
Corinne, I commission you to start a whole measurement and ranking.
Oh no, you don't want to measure earbuds. It's cancer.
I'm actually gonna branch into headphones soon. So that's gonna be
no, that's the red ocean. You gotta, the red ocean. Have you ever heard of the red ocean?
I gotta go for the blue ocean.
Yeah, you need to go to the blue ocean. You need to do earbuds.
But earbuds are okay. Maybe this should be cut out from the podcast again. But the earbud community is heavily steeped in snake oil. Very, very
500 ohm earbuds on the market.
Yeah, it's okay. It's like I have seen posts.
This is weird stuff.
I've seen posts where it's these enthusiasts, they take V-Monks, for instance, and they recable it with a $300 pure silver cable, and they plug it into a Cord Hugo.
Yeah, no, that exists for sure.
And they'll claim a lot of things like these sound better than my HD800s, these sound better than the K1Ks, these sound better than my 2-channel setup. You know, there's a lot of hyperbole going on with these kind of communities, and it's a very dangerous place to start.
Exactly where you
I don't want to
need
touch
someone
that
with a
community.
measurement rig.
Yeah, exactly. Like someone like me, I'm gonna get lynched. I'm gonna get eaten alive.
Yes. No, I want to see it.
But you gotta do it for the community. Just
Do it
take
for the memes.
take the hit.
I need to know. I don't know what earbuds to buy. I'm like, I want to buy a pair of earbuds now.
You need these earbuds with these cables as well as
I mean, you should. I mean, maybe you can get those Yincros to compare them to at least, because that's like the main thing that I hear around our server is that are those. So
yeah, Yincros are nice. I would recommend them if you want earbuds with actual semblance of bass.
Okay. Yeah, I will look that up.
I should buy one soon. Yeah.
So, well, maybe it's time to wrap it up. I think we've been going for like 2.5 hours almost.
Sure.
So, how about we finish this off by each of us kind of just giving our favorite IEM and what we like about it.
Okay.
Should I start, or do you guys have your pick already?
I always have my pick.
All right, then you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of obvious. Mine would be my personally modded N8, but that's only because it has been basically built to my own personal specifications. But if you're talking about pure stock, then my current money would go to the IRZ1R. That's kind of the obvious pick. Yeah.
So
they're all great because bass, and I am an unapologetic bass head. People already know this. I put a lot of emphasis on the naturalness and the rumble of bass, which most BA IEMs can't do. And these two IEMs are currently the cream of the crop when it comes to the hybrid design kind of sound. Love them to death. I wouldn't sell them. Yeah, they're great.
All right, Lachlan. If you need more time, I can go.
I actually have trouble working out whether I like my Andromeda S more or I like my XBA Z5s more.
Ooh, Z5.
Z5. Those are V-shaped too, right?
Yeah, but in a really weird V shape, in the same
way. More
like
U-shaped, maybe.
Almost like a Bayer Dynamic DT770, where that's almost like the DT990 is what I would consider V-shaped, and then the DT770 is just sort of
U-shaped more. Like that's like more linear mids, right? And a little less emphasis on the lower treble and the mid bass.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird signature, and I think I like the Andromeda as a sort of critical listening thing, but I love the Z5 because it's got that very cavernous bass response and then the hyper weird treble, and it's not natural, and I wouldn't listen to like, I suppose classical music on it, but for a lot of the sort of more electronic-y stuff I listen to, it is brilliant. Like, it's a lot of fun. So it's always I guess it's the dichotomy that I have between what I think is good, like a good balanced natural sound like the Andromeda, and then what I think is fun like the Z5.
So I guess that leaves me. It's kind of tough for me to decide too, because I've changed my opinion a lot, just like a lot in recent times, and I haven't really kept up with all of the new releases. For example, I haven't listened to the N8. I haven't listened to the Z1R. So I haven't listened to a lot of these really high-end hybrids that have been coming out recently, more so than before, which I should probably mention before I talk about my favorite. And where I did buy that UE 18 Plus, and it was my favorite for a long time, especially when I was still commuting a lot and using it for the isolation and comfort. But recently, the IEM that's been getting most of the listening time for me is the Orchestune HS1551.
Okay.
Which definitely is far from neutral, and I own a lot of IEMs. I have an ER4S too. I have the U18 Plus. I've got the Sirius coming, which the Sirius is a more neutrally tuned IEM, so to speak, too. But the thing that makes me use these most of my stuff right now is the convenience. In one sense, I feel like it's more convenient to me to have a universal in a lot of sense, because I don't have to take care of them as much, because I'm really like careful with UEs, and I don't want to wear them everywhere, and I don't want to keep them like somewhere where I'm not sure if they're safe. And so I've been using these more, and it's just easy to quickly pop them in, and it's nice for me personally, I actually have more comfort since they're vented. So it feels like there's less pressure on my eardrum, having them vented or something. I don't know if that's actually the case, but it just feels more comfortable. And they have like...
Oh, you need a 64 audio.
Maybe I need an Adel or Apex or whatever they... sorry, Adel doesn't exist anymore, or at least not.
They still exist. Adel is with in-ears with a Z. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so the HS1551, even though they look really uncomfortable to most people, for me they're quite comfortable after I figured out how to angle them properly, because before the screw of the case hit my outer ear, which was uncomfortable, but now I know how to angle them, and they're really comfortable, and the sound is just a really rich bassy sound. It's so I kind of, with IEMs, I kind of lean towards using bassier IEMs when I go outside, because at that point I'm not really critically listening most of the time anyways, and I listen to more more rap music, more pop music when I go outside than when I'm at home. Less jazz, less quiet music. So I really enjoy this punchy, warmish sound that the HS1551 gives me. Right. All right then. I had a lot of fun today. I don't think we touched on everything that we could have touched on. I think there's still lots left to talk about.
Oh, definitely.
Of course.
100%. And we'll probably do another episode about IEMs, and we'll definitely have both of you guys on again. I don't know if together or if separately, but you're definitely always welcome, and I had a great time today. Thanks for being on, and thanks everybody else for listening. Yeah.
Thanks everyone. That was great.
Thanks a lot, boys.